Welcome, Gunrunner.
Ever since I started producing these greatest of all time videos about a year and a half ago, I kept getting asked when I am covering the Nintendo Entertainment System. So I couldn't put it off much longer, and you were certainly pleased to see me get round to covering it too, as I saw the largest amount of votes I've ever received for any of these videos thus far. As the console that brought gaming back to life in North America, it's hardly a surprise I suppose, even if it was a lot less successful in Europe. As with previous greatest of all time videos, I put the big question to the members of several large retro gaming groups on Facebook, including the hugely popular and very lively Retro Gaming Hysteria, link in the description for those who want to join, as well as my own loyal subscribers, asking them to name their top 5 and the reasons why. Following the same rules as before, I awarded 5 points to your first choice, 4 points to second, and so on and so forth. I then counted up those votes to decide the final placings. In the case of games having the same number of points, I then went to the number of votes awarded, followed by the number of first place votes to decide the final rankings. Thankfully I only had to use these tiebreakers a couple of times in the top 20, but they came into full effect when I got round to compiling the top 40, which as always will be a Patreon exclusive video uploaded around the end of the month. At this point in the intro to these videos, I usually pick out some interesting things that I noticed while compiling it, but with this NES list, it was actually quite difficult to be surprised by anything I saw in the voting. I think it's partly down to the fact that the NES has such a huge and incredibly diverse library. I suppose I could mention the lack of arcade conversions, but this has actually been a surprising trend across all of the lists I've compiled so far, greatest Atari Lynx games excluded. Or I could point out the distinct lack of shoot 'em ups in the voting process, with the likes of Gradius, Zanuck, Gallagher and Life Force failing to make the cut. I was also quite shocked to see neither Dr. Mario nor Tetris make the top 40, especially the latter. It will be interesting to see if you were surprised by anything in this list down in the comments. I look forward to seeing what you have to say. Now, I'm sure you're all getting bored of hearing me talk and just want to know who won, so let's get on with that countdown now, shall we?
Ultra's improved your favorite arcade game. First, we added 2 new levels, then packed it with bigger, stronger enemies, and a ton of extra foot soldiers. Next, we punched up the action with knockout new attack moves and crime-fighting scenes like the Ninja Castle. If that doesn't swell your shell, we made one more small adjustment. Introducing the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade game, today's biggest hit. For your NES. Free personal pan pizza coupon from Pizza Hut in every box.
After delivering the first Turtles game for the NES, a frustrating platform-style affair, Konami gave us the game we all really wanted just a year later, a port of the amazing arcade game that was the talk of every school playground across the globe upon release. Originally released as part of the famous Kunio-kun series in Japan, River City Ransom is rightly regarded as one of the 8-bit Nintendo console's best games, and one of the finest scrolling beat-em-ups of the era full stop, so it's great to see it make this list. Like many other NES titles that share the same name as a coin-op, this is a totally different game to its arcade parent. I'm not usually a fan of the changes, but in this case it really works, as NES Bionic Commando is a much deeper game with a lot more to it. Since it first appeared on the Nintendo NES in 1987, Final Fantasy has gone on to become one of the most successful franchises in the gaming industry, successfully making the transition from 2D to 3D and endlessly evolving along the way. A truly iconic RPG. Despite arriving pretty late in the NES's lifetime, Kirby's Adventure still managed to secure a pretty big audience and ended up becoming one of Nintendo's most beloved and popular franchises. Its 16th place in this top 20 very much confirms its legacy. An adapted port of the 1986 Konami arcade game, Jackal is perhaps one of the most unlikely entries in this top 20 list, but as a favourite of my own, I'm certainly not complaining. It delivers a great twist on the top-down run and gun genre. What is there left to say about this iconic game? Bobble is widely regarded as one of the best platform games ever made, and rightly so too. The game was so successful that it saw conversions from a multitude of different machines and spawned some equally excellent sequels too. I don't think I need to tell you the legacy left by the original Castlevania, a franchise that is still beloved by people around the world and was even turned into an animated Netflix series more recently. But this is where it all began, of course, and it still very much holds up. Whilst Tecmo's original Ninja Gaiden coin-op was a superb scrolling beat-em-up starring a back-flipping ninja called Ryo Hayabusa, who would later star in the Dead or Alive games, the NES game is a frustratingly hard action platformer instead, but you certainly seem to like it anyway. SNK's Crystalis is the very definition of a cult classic, as whilst this action RPG is not that well known by retro gamers in general, it's looked upon incredibly favourably by the more focused NES community, and only just missed out on becoming one of your top 10 titles. I was somewhat surprised to not only see Super Mario Bros. 2 make the list, but sneak into the top 10 too, given that it isn't really a Mario game at all and is often snubbed by the franchise purists. But it seems that enough of you out there loved it to see it join its siblings in this list. After the horror that was the original Double Dragon on the NES, I wasn't expecting much from its sequel, but I couldn't have been more wrong. In my opinion, this is the best game ever released for the 8-bit Nintendo, and I was pleased to see that so many of you agreed with me. Nintendo Super Bowl is the only true sports simulation to make this list, but its inclusion is far from surprising given its legendary status and unwavering popularity that still sees people hacking the game every year to keep it up to date with the latest NFL rosters. One of the most interesting things about this list is how many games are featured that went on to spawn huge multi-million-dollar franchises, and here is another in the form of Metroid, a groundbreaking arcade adventure with an unlikely female protagonist. A conversion of the equally popular arcade game of the same name, this NES version was originally endorsed by former World Heavyweight Champion Mike Tyson before he got in trouble with the law, and his name was quietly removed from all future editions. When we think of Konami's output for the 8-bit Nintendo, one of the first games that springs to mind is Contra. It's the quintessential NES game in fact, and one of those cartridges that it seemed like everybody owned back in the day, so I wasn't surprised to see it finish in 5th place. This wouldn't be a list of the greatest NES games of all time without the original Super Mario Bros., the game that is credited with much of the NES's huge success in North America and the title that all future side-scrolling platformers would be judged by. Although there were votes for all 6 Mega Man games on the NES, it was the second one in the series that swept up the vast majority of them. Widely regarded as one of Capcom's greatest ever creations, it's about time the Mega Man franchise made a comeback. I think it was always obvious that the original Zelda would claim a place in the top 3, and it finished way ahead of Mega Man 2 to claim the runners-up medal. There's not really a lot that needs to be said about this groundbreaking roleplay game, is there? But here it is. Right here at the very top of your list we have the worst kept secret ever, because it was always obvious that Super Mario Bros. 3 would claim first place in this countdown, and it was a very convincing win too, scoring over 30 points more than second place Zelda.
Mario! 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 Mario!
He's back. All you had to do was ask. Super Mario Bros. 3 from Nintendo. Now you're playing with power.
And that rounds up my look at the 20 greatest Nintendo Entertainment System games of all time. But which games were you most surprised not to see make the final list? Or are there any games that you don't think were worthy of inclusion in this countdown? I always love to hear the thoughts and views of my audience, so please get typing in that comments section. Before I go though, I must thank all of my loyal patrons and YouTube backers for continuing to support my channel and make videos like this possible. However, I must give special thanks to the following people in particular for their much appreciated pledges: Paul Daniel, Mins, Dos Gamerman, Luke MC, Carl Olsen, Seth Robinson, Grady Haynes, Mark Strickland, Kalimatorn, Trogdor the Burninator, Daniel Skoronsky, Ben P. Stein, Tabby Kitsune, Alan J. Dodds, Your Eyes Are Bleeding, and Electron Star Collapse. If you also want to help support all my creative endeavours, including this YouTube channel, then please go and check out my Patreon right now. You can get access to host extra content, including downloads, exclusive videos, creative insights, and much more besides. I've been the Laird, I thank you for watching, and I'll see you all again for another video very soon.